Masking is one of the most useful things that you can learn in this program in terms of being able to erase with forgiveness. Now, I don't know how many projects you guys have done by now, but at least a few of you have probably come into this situation where you were working on a project and perhaps you had a layer at the bottom of your stack that had something you thought you didn't need, so you just grabbed the eraser and you just erased it out of your picture. You saved it, you came back to it later, you had a major breakthrough, you had a great idea, and all of a sudden you realize that a portion of that bottom layer that you needed, you erased it and it's gone forever. Well, the way to work around that problem is instead of using the eraser, we're going to use what's called layer masking. And layer masking uses a key word which is non-destructive. Non-destructive means that it's a non-permanent change. The eraser is destructive. The pixels that it erases are gone. They're not coming back unless you try to undo them, but you only have a limited amount of undos, and once you save and close the file, those undos are gone forever. However, the masking tool is non-destructive. If you paint over something with black, it will be hidden, and then if you paint over it again with white, it'll show up again. And the way to illustrate this best would be to show you the picture that I have set up for you. Here we have a picture of Nicolas Cage, and on the other layer, underneath it, we have a picture of a skull. In the face swap video, I would have just busted out the eraser and I would have started erasing things. And this is destructive. I can't get these pixels back unless I undo. However, if I just add a layer mask, my whole life becomes a lot easier. Observe. If I come down to the bottom of my layers panel here, and I click on this little button, and this looks like a circle inside of a rectangle. This adds a layer mask to my layer. Now I have a thumbnail here, and this is the contents of my actual layer. So if I click on this, I'm making changes to the actual pixels. If I have this selected, then I'm making changes just to the mask. Now the mask hasn't done anything because I haven't painted on it yet. But if I grab my brush tool and I paint on it in black, and I make sure that my brush has a softness to it, then I can erase like so. However, if I decide, I think it would look really cool if he was still part human and part skull. So I am going to switch it back to white. I'm going to shrink my brush down a little bit because it was just a little bit too big, and I'm going to paint back in his face. Maybe I don't want his nose either. Okay, let's get rid of that. But I like where this is going. We've kind of got a Ghost Rider thing going on right now. I'm going to switch it back to black, and I'm going to come around here, and I am going to paint in the teeth as well. And that is really it. You're looking at a procedure in which there is forgiveness. There's essentially forgiveness in the way that this works. The eraser tool, not forgiving. With the masking concept, you can block out areas or paint them back in as necessary, and they're not truly gone. And that is extremely useful to us. Now, there's a couple of other things that masking can do as well. I'm going to delete this layer mask by dragging it down to the trash can down here. And no, I don't want to apply the mask. I just want to delete it, so it's gone again. Okay. You can also create a selection and hit the mask button, and that'll mask everything that's outside of the selection, which honestly doesn't work that well for us. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to come here to select menu, and I'm going to invert the selection. Now everything but what I selected is selected, and if I hit the mask button, now that hole disappears. So I can do that as well. I can just make a mask from the selection that I've got. The last thing that I want to talk to you about is adjusting the properties of the mask. For instance, I have this hole here that I've created, but it has a really rough edge. I can feather that edge if I need to. If I double click on this mask, then I can come up here and it brings up the properties menu. And here under the mask, I can adjust the feather of the edge. And as we go, dragging this over, now the edge becomes blurry. You see how that works? And now the properties of the mask are being changed without having to go back and change the properties of my brush. So if I need to be really precise, perhaps I needed to be precise here where I made a very, very, very specific edge, and then I can just come and feather it later. This will allow me to blend the edge of that mask just like I would if I was painting live with a brush.